Man, it is so very nice to be back in my own space again. Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing from my actual LGR space. Once again, for the first time in over a year. And well, the first VCF video, at least for Midwest, in a couple of years. Yeah, I haven't been back to that show since 2023, and it is finally time to go back and see what all has changed, because a lot, I mean everything really, has changed. And if you've seen my previous videos that my brother and I put together about that, you know that before it was growing so quickly, but in this confined little space at a hotel. Well, now it's a full convention center. So many things are different. And so this, I figured, would be the perfect time to go back and see what the heck is going on, because this is easily one of my favorite things to do. The show, the Chicago experience, just all of that. If you want to see more of that whole trip, really, go check out the vlog over on LGR Blurbs. That's a couple hours of the whole trip, but this is just going to be focused on Vintage Computer Festival Midwest as it was in 2025, and just the entire experience as it was from my perspective. I hope you enjoy. Right, so as a very brief primer, Vintage Computer Festival Midwest, at least for all the times I've attended, has been held in a large hotel conference room, and overflowing out into the hallways and other side rooms and outside. It was way too big for the small space that it was in, leading to it being a absolutely amazing show in terms of the amount of stuff, but an overly packed and kind of frustrating show to attend. Leading me to the conclusion a couple of years ago that I would not be returning until they got a new venue, and well, the very next year, they did. A significantly larger convention center, now located elsewhere but still west of Chicago, in Schaumburg, Illinois. And it's no Elmhurst Clarion Inn, that's for sure. And while a tiny part of me will miss that sort of cozier, retro-appropriate body odor and weed smell-infused vibe, I'm also not missing it too much, you know, because the Renaissance Convention Center Hotel that they've got going forward is so much more fitting for a show of this size. Not only is the attached hotel absolutely gigantic, but the convention center itself has room for up to 150,000 square feet to fill with all kinds of vintage computer goodness. And at this point, they're only using about half of that, so there's plenty of room to grow, and I'm sure that it will, because my goodness, this show is like nothing else is out there right now. Not only did they address pretty much every complaint and idea for improvement that I personally had, but it's so big and so comprehensive with so many people from around the world that at this point I heard people calling it Vintage Computer Festival International, likening it to the Retro Scenes World Cup or World Series or Super Bowl, you know, whatever. It's the biggest event in vintage computing. Seriously, if there is anything anywhere that is bigger than this dedicated to retro computers and software and hardware, then let me know, because I'd love to attend that, but I don't think there is. So before we get into any details at all, I'm just going to say that if you have any reasonable way to get to this thing next time, absolutely try to do so, because you will not have any other experience exactly like this anywhere. Plus the fact that it is a free show. Yeah, it still is a free to attend show. They don't charge for badges to get in at all. The only thing they've started charging for, in a roundabout way, are all of the tables and the exhibits. If you want to set up something there, then they have you make a donation to the Chicago Classic Computing Organization, a 501c3, and that is how they're trying to at least recoup some of the costs, with every 8-foot table having an associated $70 donation fee attached to it, which is still extremely reasonable compared to so many other shows that I've gone to, many of which are much smaller than this, and a weekend pass alone costs more than $70. But yeah, let's just jump right into what it was like to set up and attend this show as me, because I end up with a bit of a different experience compared to attending as not some YouTube weirdo who's sequestered off to a corner most of the time. And yeah, I really was in like the farthest back corner that you could get, which I wasn't initially too happy with, but it turned out to be pretty convenient in terms of unloading and loading stuff back up. Because that's also pretty close to these really big loading bay doors and ramps, which makes the whole process of setting up and tearing down this show 100 times more manageable. Although there is definitely still a bottleneck going on at peak times, so I kind of wish there was another loading door too on the other side of it, and I don't know, maybe they'll expand in that way at some time in the future, but that was a minor thing. My only real complaint was the lack of available carts to use for exhibitors. There were a handful going around, but we were never able to get one, which means we just had to walk all of our stuff in and out of the parking lot, which was, not the worst, right? We were close to that door, and I was very fortunate to have some kind folks come over and offer to help, and that was amazing. So thank you all for that, but yeah, obviously would be nice to have even more carts available. I'm going to try to bring my own next time. And after that, it was just the normal setup process. As long as the power held up, which mostly it did. There were a few blips here and there. That everything was smooth sailing otherwise, at least for me. Well, how about if you're attending as not an exhibitor? Well, when you get to the hotel and find some kind of parking, and they're building a parking garage for the future, but as of now, there's just a lot of parking lots surrounding the place. It can be a bit of a trek, but there is plenty of it available. Anyway, yeah, once you get to the actual hotel, if you go in the gigantic main entrance and then into the lobby almost, but take a left, you just keep going. And eventually, after going past some ballrooms and other convention center areas, you'll eventually reach the main exhibition hall, and then just inside there is a table where you can pick up your badges, maybe some VCF MW merch. There's always t-shirts and things available. And this is also where you can peruse the upcoming auction items, which are a bunch of things that people donate to the show, and is another way that they raise funds instead of charging for individual badges. And not too far from there, it appears that's where the free pile or piles were located, where anybody can just drop off stuff within certain parameters that they don't want to sell but want to get rid of. I didn't really get a chance to go through it myself whatsoever, so I'm just assuming that this was the free pile. That's what it looks like from the signage. I didn't actually get to see it in person or really anything else in the show except for my own table and in between a handful of tables from the doors when I was going to lunch or a panel or whatever. So that brings me to a big old caveat of this video. I didn't really get to see much. I'll be honest, I kind of struggled putting this video together because I really genuinely did not get a chance to see 90% of what was there. And that's a big reason I bring my brother Luke along so he can film the majority of all this footage that you're seeing here. I cannot really speak to what was out on the floor very much at all, since I wasn't out on the floor. I was at my table. And this show has gotten so big, so busy, around 6,000 people this time, that there wasn't a single moment that I was at the table on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. that there wasn't a line of people to come up and say hi and get selfies and sign things and buy stickers, whatever. And then Sunday as well. It really didn't slow down till about 3 p.m., which is incredible. I'm not complaining. It is the reason that I'm there. It's more of a meet and greet at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way and say that there's only so many things that I got to see there personally. So if I'm not commenting on any particularly interesting things, that is why I'm probably just now seeing it for the first time as I edit this footage. So I can certainly talk about what was at the LGR table because I put it together, and it was an assortment of things that I've shown on LGR before, and a couple of little extras because that's just what I like to do. Starting with the venerable LGR Woodgrain 486, newly accompanied by the Mitsubishi Oberhofer monitor and a neat power center and burger mouse, and then the Megaluminum Monster build, the Pentium 3. Really, I just wanted something to run the Reality Fusion Game Cam late 90s motion control thing. Got my big old greetings banner in the background there, and the Omnibot 2000, I had to have him out there, even though he wasn't powered up or anything. He survived the hurricane and deserved a trip out. And then lastly here I had the Sony Vaio PCV MX2, the mini disc computer that I have not seen at any other show, and I wanted to show it. And then of course some things to sell and give away, including a glow-in-the-dark Cool Crab, a shiny LGR sticker, a bunch of LGR shareware floppies that I made, and some coasters, which I was just giving away because the coaster factory sent me like thousands of them, and I've got so many and still do. So yeah, a nice representative sample of LGR things on the tables this time. I'm happy to just get these things out there and have people look at them and try them out in person, especially after the whole hurricane ordeal in 2024. A lot of people were there asking about that, and in fact, the majority, and folks were just happy to see some of their favorite items from the channel intact. Although there was a bit of unintended confusion that arose due to the lines that were forming, because due to the crowd of bodies we've had in the past, instead of an orderly queue, they put up these traffic cones with tape in between them. A good idea to kind of form an area where people could come up to the table just to say hi to me. Well, that also ended up implying to a lot of folks that they couldn't go up to the table at all unless they waited in line for 30 minutes or whatever, and that just wasn't the case. I was trying to tell people that, hey, you can go up and see all of the things. You don't have to wait in line, but it wasn't the most clear. So next time I'll try to have a sign up at the beginning of the line to make it more obvious that, hey, this is just for the meet and greet part. You can go up to the table and mess around with computers all you want. The only other issue I had at my table was less of a specific problem and more of an overall concern, because as great as it is to be so accessible and meet hundreds if not thousands of people in person, it also comes with a growing unease regarding security, not only for me but the show in general. Because at other conventions this size, I'm used to seeing a number of security staff on hand, along with folks verifying passes at every door, checking people's bags on occasion, things like that. And I haven't noticed any of that at VCF Midwest. Only a few show volunteers stationed at merchandise tables and making the rounds and whatnot. And at a show this size, I'm increasingly finding that to be pretty lacking, and security was hard not to think about. I want to emphasize that at no point at this show did I feel unsafe. It was just a whole lot of everything and everyone all at once, and it's enough to get a little overwhelmed. And that's not always a bad thing. I felt delightfully overwhelmed during my few brief opportunities to wander the floor, talk to a handful of other exhibitors, and see what goodies they brought to the show. And man, there was so much more than I've ever seen at one of these. The increased variety brought about by the sheer number of tables this year was fantastic. And while I didn't get to look at very many of them in depth, some of the things that stood out in particular includes this 50-plus-year-old TV that produced its color image by combining separate red, green, and blue CRTs. And this giant blue Zalman liquid cooling system reservoir from the mid-2000s, just ridiculously over the top. And that unavoidable telephony system that was strung up and allowing attendees access to use AMP's cellular, UHF, and other signals with older wireless devices. And this table with not only one but two monorail computers, which is just my kind of silliness. And this very orange bunk bed setup showing an idealized 1999, year 2000 kind of bedroom setup if you had a whole pile of money back then. This exceedingly cool robotic arm controlled by a PDP-11 that was once used for things like brain surgery and can now program the game Kill the Bit on an Altair 8800 one switch at a time. And these wonderful IBM PC-110 computers that are not only being augmented with custom PCMCIA cards, but also being fully reverse engineered and recreated piece by piece. And this head-mounted mouse by Personics from 1985 that lets you control original Macintoshes by pointing your forehead at the screen and moving it around. And then these last two, which I only saw in passing, unfortunately, but I'm seriously geeking out just looking at the footage. There's a legit Pizza Time Theater animatronics control computer, the setup used back in the day by Chuck E. Cheese to control their animatronic dinner shows. It makes me curious how similar it might have been or not to the Showbiz Pizza computers. And then there was this straight-up Amray electron microscope from 1984, the kind of thing I never even considered you could get as a civilian, which was there and working and just available for anybody to use at the show. I mean, holy crap, it's so cool. And again, this is only a tiny selection of things I walked past and that caught my attention in the moment. And with 245 exhibitors and only a few minutes here and there to see them, I was sadly only able to look at a fraction of it all this year. But yeah, all that to say that if you find anything interesting at all in the world of vintage computing and retro tech and just the hardware and software from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, why aren't you going to this? You're all but guaranteed to run across a few exhibits and tables that really get you going. And of course, to keep yourself going, you're going to need some food, and thankfully that situation has improved. With the Schaumburg Public House restaurant and bar built right into the hotel, and while it's not complimentary or anything, you're definitely going to be paying. The breakfasts, lunch, and dinners that we had there, honestly, no complaints. There are also a number of vending machines and concession spots, as well as this little marketplace food corner right within the exhibition hall itself. They got like hot dogs and chicken tenders and little pizza slices and sandwiches and stuff. I cannot attest to the quality versus price on these at all because we didn't have any. We ended up just bringing our own stuff to snack on during the show. But I'm just glad it's here and not like a single poor staffer working the entire weekend to fix everyone's food like at the Clarion. And it isn't just the exhibition hall full of all the computers and things, as awe-inspiring and entirely time-consuming as that can be. No, there are other rooms nearby with things like the aforementioned VCF auction, and even a couple of live shows and some concerts happening now, which is an amazing thing to see. I love seeing VCF Midwest evolve and grow like this. And having the privilege of being a part of the YouTuber panel, which this was Jim Leonard's final time hosting it, and so thank you very much, sir. It's always been a good time to be on there and have your questions and the Q&A with the crowd and everything. And yeah, I think actually I might like to do my own next time I attend. We'll see. And also next time I really need to get a more suitable vehicle because we were so tightly packed with things before we even got there. And of course after the show with all the donations and stuff, including this awesome old Sony Trinitron, we were completely packed to a concerning degree in my car. So anyway, thank you very much though for everybody that was so kind and generous to bring things over and hand them off to me and be like, dude, I just thought of you when I found this at a thrift store or while cleaning up the house, or my dad used to own this while working at such and such company, and so many cool things that y'all brought over. All of that stuff, interaction-wise, is exactly why I continue to come back to this thing with my own table. And, I could see way more of the show if I didn't have a table or any kind of obligations, right? But having done this many times at many shows, it is just such a grand opportunity to really get out of my own head and YouTuber work bubble, sitting there working on videos all day, and you kind of forget sometimes, or at least I do, that there are real people watching and genuinely engaging with it and doing all kinds of amazing things of their own, Like I've been doing this long enough now where people are constantly coming up to me at shows like this saying that I've been watching you 10, 15 years or even longer. And then you show me your YouTube channel that you started or a project that you've put together, or you go over and take me over to your table and be like, look, here's a thing that happened and now we're here at this show and it was because I watched such and such video of yours and these other folks online, and it is genuinely reinvigorating to me as a human being, like on a person-to-person level, especially just, after the last year. And thank you very much, genuinely, for all your kind words and showing me all the cool stuff and attending this show with me. It's always a blast. And here's hoping that next year is not only bigger, but even better. And hopefully every way. I'm very, very optimistic about the future of VCF Midwest at this point. Although I really do hope for maybe just a couple of other checks and safeguards put in place in terms of security. Like, it's nice to have the exhibitor badges and speaker badges. These are great steps, but there's more I think that could be taken just in case. And charging even a minimal fee to get in, I really don't think that anyone would mind. It'll offset the growing costs. And not only that, but it would help keep track of getting a proper head count and badges to everybody instead of it being more of an optional thing. Yeah, just one more little step in terms of letting people in the doors. It is incredible that it's been free this entire time, but again, this is getting to such a size where it might be worth considering. Still, I look forward to returning to Vintage Computer Festival Midwest any time that I can make it happen. It is amazing. Like I said, there is nothing else quite like it. And if you'd like to see some more coverage from both myself and my brother Luke, I'll put some links down in the video description. I've got a vlog covering our entire trip up to the Chicagoland area, and it's not just VCF Midwest. We also went to KnobCon, which is a synthesizer and electronic music convention. It was awesome, and turns out it pairs very well with VCF. But yeah, that's it for this particular video of mine about this particular show. It'll be on to some more regular kind of LGR things here pretty soon, so I hope you stick around for those. And as always, thanks so much for watching.